The briefing room smelled like disappointment and recycled air, which was pretty much standard for Galactic Council facilities. Commander Vrel sat at the head of the table, his 6 eyes blinking in sequence as he reviewed the datapad in front of him. I was sitting 3 seats down, trying not to laugh at the absolute absurdity of what was about to happen. So let me get this straight, I said, my mandibles clicking with barely contained amusement. You want to send the human to Kethra 9? Vrel's primary eyes swiveled toward me. Is there a problem, Lieutenant ZYX? Problem? No problem at all. I leaned back in my chair, which squeaked in protest. I just think it's hilarious that we're essentially handing him a death sentence, and he's probably going to treat it like a vacation. The human in question, one Marcus Webb, sat quietly in the corner. He was doing that thing humans do where they smile with their mouths closed, like they know something you don't. It was unsettling. Most species found humans unsettling, to be honest. They were relatively new to the Galactic Council, having only achieved faster-than-light travel about 50 cycles ago, and they had this disturbing habit of surviving things that should absolutely kill them. The mission parameters are clear, Vrel continued, ignoring my commentary. Kethra 9 is classified as a Class 12 death world. The atmosphere contains 17 different toxins that are lethal to 98% of known species. The plant life is carnivorous and highly aggressive. The insects are the size of small vehicles and have venom that can liquefy organs in under 3 minutes. Sounds lovely, Marcus said, still smiling. What's the weather like? I couldn't help it. I laughed. It came out as a sort of chittering sound that made Vrel's feathers ruffle with irritation. This is not a joke, Lieutenant, Vrel snapped. Oh, I know it's not a joke, I replied. That's what makes it so funny. Here's the thing about humans that nobody tells you in the orientation videos, they're insane. Not in a clinical way, but in a practical, everyday sort of way. You tell them something is dangerous, and they lean in closer. You tell them something is impossible, and they take it as a personal challenge. You tell them a planet will kill them in 17 different ways, and they ask about the weather. Marcus stood up and walked to the display screen, examining the topographical maps of Kethra 9. So what exactly am I looking for? There's a research outpost, Vrel explained, his tone somewhat mollified by the human's apparent professionalism. It went dark 6 weeks ago. The team was studying the local ecosystem for potential pharmaceutical applications. We need to know what happened to them and retrieve any data they collected. How many species have you sent before me? Marcus asked, his eyes still scanning the maps. The room went quiet. That was answer enough. 12, Vrel finally admitted. None returned. Fantastic. Marcus turned around, that smile still plastered on his face. When do I leave? 2 days later, I found myself standing in the launch bay, watching the preparation crews load Marcus's shuttle. I'd volunteered to be his liaison officer, mostly because I had a morbid curiosity about how long he'd survive. The betting pools in the barracks had him lasting anywhere from 3 hours to 3 days. I'd put my money on 2 days, which now seemed optimistic. Marcus was checking his equipment, a surprisingly light loadout compared to what the previous missions had carried. No heavy armor, no plasma weapons, just a standard field kit, some basic tools, and what appeared to be several empty containers. What are those for? I asked, pointing at the containers. Samples, he said simply. Samples? You're going to a planet that wants to kill you, and you're planning to bring back souvenirs? Well, yeah. He looked at me like I was the crazy one. I mean, if there's interesting stuff there, why wouldn't I? Because you'll be dead? Maybe. He shrugged. But if I'm not, I'll have samples. The human logic was undeniable, even if it was completely deranged. The shuttle departed an hour later, and I watched it disappear into the void. Then I went back to my quarters and tried not to think about the fact that I'd just watched someone fly off to their death while smiling about it. 3 days passed. Then 4. Then a week. The betting pools evolved. Now people were betting on how they'd find the body. My bunkmate, a Threxian named Kiv, had put down credits on dissolved in plant acid. Another officer bet on impaled by toxic thorns. Someone with a dark sense of humor bet on nothing left to find. I was in the commissary on day 8 when the alarms went off. Not the emergency klaxons, but the arrival alerts. Someone was coming back through the jump gate. I dropped my meal and ran to the command center, sliding through the doors just as they opened. The main screen showed the shuttle, Marcus's shuttle, approaching the station. It was intact. Scuffed and dirty, but intact. That's impossible, Vrel whispered. I told you, I said, though I was just as shocked as everyone else. Humans are weird. The docking procedures were expedited, and within 20 minutes, we were all standing in the receiving bay, staring at the shuttle's door like it might explode. It hissed open, and Marcus stepped out, looking tired but very much alive. He was also carrying several of those containers, now full of various plants, soil samples, and what appeared to be some kind of dried leaves. Well, he said, setting down the containers with a satisfied sigh. That was interesting. Interesting? Vrel's voice pitched higher than I'd ever heard it. You went to Kethra 9, a Class 12 death world, and you call it interesting? Yeah. Marcus started unpacking the containers. The atmospheric toxins weren't that bad once I adjusted to them. Gave me a bit of a headache for the first day, but then it cleared up. The plants were aggressive, sure, but they're pretty predictable once you understand their trigger mechanisms. The insects were huge, definitely, but they're actually pretty docile if you don't threaten their nests. I stared at him. You're telling me that one of the deadliest planets in the known galaxy is just, what, mildly inconvenient? For me, yeah. He held up one of the containers filled with dark leaves. But check this out. These leaves, when dried and steeped in hot water, make an incredible beverage. It's got this earthy flavor with a hint of sweetness. I've been drinking it for the past 3 days, and it's amazing. You made tea, I said flatly. You went to a death planet and made tea. Well, yes, but also, he held up another container, this one filled with what looked like dried berries and crushed roots. This combination of plants makes a really complex seasoning blend. I tried it on some of the emergency rations, and it completely transformed them. I'm thinking it would work great on grilled meats or roasted vegetables. The command center was silent. Everyone was processing the fact that a human had gone to one of the most dangerous planets in the sector and had come back with groceries. What about the research team? Vrel finally managed to ask. Oh, right. Marcus pulled out a data chip. Found them. They're all dead, unfortunately. Looks like they tried to set up camp near a nest of those big insects I mentioned. Classic mistake, really. They probably didn't realize the pheromone markers. Anyway, I retrieved all their data and samples. The pharmaceutical stuff looks promising, by the way. There's a fungus growing on some of the trees that seems to have strong antibiotic properties. He handed the chip to Vrel, who took it with a trembling hand, or tentacle, or whatever you wanted to call his appendages. You completed the mission, Vrel said, sounding dazed. Was there any doubt? Marcus asked. Yes, I thought. Literally everyone doubted it. That was the whole point. So what do I do with these? Marcus gestured to his containers. I'd love to cultivate some of these plants if possible. And I was thinking the tea could be a nice addition to the commissary menu. It's way better than that synthetic stuff you have. And that's when it hit me. The human hadn't just survived Kethra 9. He'd gone shopping. He'd turned a suicide mission into a culinary expedition. He'd looked at a planet that had killed 12 previous expeditions and had seen not danger, but opportunity. I started laughing again, that same chittering sound, but this time I couldn't stop. What's so funny? Marcus asked. You, I managed between laughs. All of you. Every single human. You're all completely insane, and the galaxy has no idea what it's in for. Marcus smiled, that same calm, knowing smile. I'll take that as a compliment. It is, I said. Trust me, it really is. The fallout from Marcus's little shopping trip to the death planet was, predictably, chaos of the best kind. Within 48 hours, the Galactic Council had convened an emergency session. Not because of the retrieved data, mind you, but because a human had survived somewhere he absolutely should not have, and nobody knew what to do with that information. Was summoned to give testimony, which was hilarious because what was I supposed to say? That humans were built different? That their definition of dangerous was everyone else's definition of mildly annoying? That Marcus had literally brewed tea on a planet where the air itself was supposed to kill him. The council chamber was packed. Representatives from 47 different species filled the curved seating arrangement, all of them chattering in their various languages, creating a symphony of confusion and concern. I spotted Marcus standing in the witness area, looking completely unbothered by the fact that hundreds of alien eyes were staring at him like he was some kind of anomaly. Which, to be fair, he was. Counselor Thrain, an elderly Valkyrian with scales that shimmered purple under the lights, called the session to order. We are here to address the unprecedented survival of human Marcus Webb on Kethra 9, a planet that has claimed the lives of 12 previous expeditions. Mr. Webb, would you care to explain how you accomplished this? Marcus stepped forward. Sure. I breathed, I walked, I paid attention to my surroundings, and I didn't die. Is there a specific part you want me to elaborate on? The chamber erupted in sounds of disbelief. Thrain raised one clawed hand for silence. You make it sound simple. It was pretty simple, Marcus replied. The toxins in the atmosphere are primarily sulfur-based compounds mixed with some organic volatiles. My species evolved handling all sorts of atmospheric variations. Earth has places with high sulfur content near volcanic regions. We adapted. The concentration on Kethra-9 was higher, yes, but not insurmountable. My body processed it. Your body processed it, repeated Counselor Jex, an insectoid being from the Terminus sector. Class 12 atmospheric toxins. Your body simply processed them. Well, I did get a headache, Marcus admitted. And I felt nauseous for about 6 hours. But then it passed. I drank a lot of water, kept my electrolytes up, and pushed through. Standard acclimatization protocol. I watched from my seat as the council members exchanged glances. They were realizing something that I had figured out days ago. Humans were not just tough. They were adaptable in ways that defied conventional biology. What about the carnivorous plant life? Thrain asked. The reports indicate they are highly aggressive and capable of consuming prey up to twice their mass. Oh, the snapvines? Marcus actually looked enthusiastic. Yeah, those were cool. They operate on a pressure trigger system. If you step on the root network, they sense the vibration and strike. But if you step carefully and avoid the obvious root patterns, they leave you alone. It is like walking through a minefield, except the mines are plants and they tell you exactly where they are if you bother to look. You walked through them, Jex said flatly. I mapped them first, Marcus corrected. Took me about 3 hours to chart a safe path through the densest sections. After that, it was just following the map. Also, I collected samples. Those snapvines have a really interesting digestive enzyme that could have applications in waste processing. I included that in my report. Thrain's scales shifted to a darker purple, which I had learned meant he was frustrated. And the insects? The venomous ones the size of vehicles? The Goliath beetles? Marcus shrugged. They are territorial, not aggressive. Big difference. They only attack if you get near their nests or if you're covered in the scent markers that identify you as a threat. I stayed away from the nests and I washed regularly with water from the local streams, which diluted any scent I was carrying. They mostly ignored me. You washed in the streams, Thrain repeated slowly. The streams that the previous expedition reports described as highly acidic. They have a low pH, yeah, around 3.5, but that is not much worse than lemon juice. It tingled a bit, but nothing serious. I wouldn't want to swim in it for hours, but for a quick wash? Totally fine. The chamber was silent now. Every representative was staring at Marcus with a mixture of awe and horror. I was grinning so hard my mandibles hurt. Counselor Mira, a phosphine who glowed with a soft blue light, spoke up. Her voice was gentle, almost motherly. Mr. Webb, do you understand what you have done? You have survived conditions that we classify as unsurvivable. You have challenged our fundamental understanding of habitability. Marcus looked genuinely confused. I just did my job. You asked me to retrieve data from a research outpost. I retrieved it. The fact that the planet was dangerous was just an environmental factor to account for. An environmental factor, Mira repeated. You treat a Class 12 death world as an environmental factor. What else would it be? I couldn't hold it in anymore. I laughed, that chittering sound echoing through the chamber. Everyone turned to look at me, but I did not care. Don't you see? I called out. This is what they do. Humans do not see obstacles the way we do. They see problems to solve. You tell them a planet is deadly, and they figure out how not to die there. You tell them something is impossible, and they find a way to make it possible. They are not stronger than us or smarter than us, they are just too stubborn to accept limitations. Marcus pointed at me. That is actually a pretty good summary. Thrain leaned forward. So you are saying humans are simply stubborn? Aggressively stubborn, I clarified. Dangerously stubborn. The kind of stubborn that makes them look at a planet that killed 12 expeditions and think, well, maybe I will be the 13th times the charm. Also, Marcus added, I had good equipment and I did my research. The previous expeditions failed because they tried to brute force their way through the environment. Heavy armor, plasma weapons, lots of technology. But all that stuff just made them bigger targets and slower to react. I went light, stayed mobile, and adapted to the environment instead of fighting it. You adapted to a death world, Jex said. Humans are good at adapting, Marcus replied. It is kind of our thing. Thrain sat back in his seat, his scales fading to a neutral gray. The Council will need to reassess our planetary classification system. If humans can survive on Class 12 worlds, then our entire threat assessment protocol is flawed. Or, I interjected, you could just accept that humans are weird and plan accordingly. Lieutenant ZYX makes a valid point, Mira said. Perhaps we have been approaching this incorrectly. Instead of questioning our classifications, we should recognize that humans represent a unique survival profile. Exactly, I agreed. You cannot judge them by normal standards because they are not normal. They evolved on a planet that tried to kill them in every possible way, and they thrived anyway. They are persistence predators, endurance runners, and adaptable survivors all rolled into one package. And they make tea out of things that should poison them. Marcus held up the container of dried leaves. Speaking of which, I really would like to get approval to cultivate these. The tea is fantastic, and I think it could be a big hit in the commissary. I have already talked to the hydroponics team, and they think they can create a suitable growing environment. The council members stared at him. Here they were, trying to grapple with the existential implications of human survivability, and Marcus was worried about his tea plants. Permission granted, Thrain said weakly. Whatever. Just do not let them eat anyone. They are plants, not animals, Marcus said. They will be fine. The session was adjourned shortly after that, with the council agreeing to form a subcommittee to study human capabilities and adjust protocols accordingly. I caught up with Marcus in the corridor outside the chamber. That was something, I said. Was it? I thought it went pretty well. You redefined the council's understanding of survivability and then asked if you could start a garden. That is peak human behavior. Marcus grinned. I like to stay on brand. Hey, you want to try the seasoning blend I made? I am cooking dinner tonight, and I could use a taste tester. You are going to cook with ingredients from a death planet. They are not from a death planet anymore. They are from my personal collection. I laughed again. Sure, why not? If it kills me, at least I will die doing something interesting. That is the spirit, Marcus said, clapping me on the shoulder with enough force to make me stumble. Humans never did figure out their own strength. That night, in Marcus's quarters, I tried food seasoned with plants from Kethra 9. It was, I had to admit, delicious. Complex flavors that I had never experienced before, a mix of savory and slightly sweet with an underlying earthiness that was genuinely pleasant. See? Marcus said, watching me eat. Not deadly at all. Just misunderstood. You are talking about the plants or yourself? Both, probably. Over the following weeks, Marcus's tea became a sensation on the station. Crew members from dozens of species tried it, and most found it surprisingly enjoyable. The hydroponics bay devoted an entire section to cultivating the Kethra 9 plants, which grew aggressively but remained harmless under controlled conditions. The bedding pools evolved too. Now people were not betting on whether humans would survive dangerous situations, but on what they would bring back with them. When the council announced another high-risk mission to a Class 11 world, 3 different humans volunteered. The smart money was on all of them returning with either food, beverages, or useful materials, and learned something important during those weeks. The galaxy had spent millennia categorizing threats and avoiding dangers. Then humans showed up and started treating those dangers as opportunities. They did not conquer through force or superior technology. They conquered through sheer, bloody-minded refusal to accept that something could not be done, and maybe, just maybe, that was exactly what the galaxy needed. Someone to look at the impossible and say, hold my tea, I got this. Marcus never did get the recognition he probably deserved for that mission. No medals, no commendations, just a note in his file and permission to grow weird plants. But he did not seem to mind. He had his tea, his seasonings, and the satisfaction of proving that humans could survive anywhere. As for me, I kept my role as his liaison officer. Someone had to document the madness, and it might as well be someone who appreciated it. The galaxy was never going to be the same. And honestly, that was fine by me.